So thank you everyone for coming to today's discussion. I'm excited. There's a lot of work to get done, so we're going to try to plow through some of this quickly. But we would like to make sure we get some feedback and reaction from you all. So what I'd like to say is if we can just sort of hang on to questions, and we'll save time at the end for questions. But I want to make sure everyone's heard. So let's make sure we get that in. So welcome again. And what I wanted to do is just take a moment to not clarify, but to remind us what the objectives of today are. So we saw some fairly compelling research that Garkana and Fleischman did for us, which I think was really helpful, and it sort of shined a light on some things we need to pay attention to. And the objective of today is for us to focus a little bit more on the principles, the Barcelona principles. We've got a panel of experts who represent multiple disciplines in the field. We want to get some perspective from them as to how they're using the principles and how it's impacting it all, the way they practice communications, the way they're thinking about approaching measurement. Would like to get some of their thinking as to if anything needs to change moving forward as it relates to these. What should it be? What we're not intended to do is go back and hammer out and develop another 6 principles. I think we have the right principles in place. They need to work harder for us. And it's incumbent upon all of us to figure out exactly how to make that happen. So with that in mind, I wanted to introduce my co-moderator, David Gallagher. You want to say a word or two? We can just dive in.
So we only have 30 minutes. We can't do a whole lot of co-moderating.
You have 15 seconds to
David Gallagher
yourself.
from Ketchum Europe and president of ECO.
Good. And we'll go down and we'll let the panelists introduce themselves. And I'd like to ask one question. As a kickoff, which was not a question we talked about. Any reaction you have to the research that was presented just in the last session? I would love to just hear your reaction. So introduce yourself, your organization, and any off-the-cuff reaction you have to the research would be great. Yep. We'll start with you, Sarah.
Great. Hello. My name is Sarah Campbell. I'm the Global Public Affairs Lead for Royal Philips. For me, I guess my first reaction is I feel like I've been led into a secret kingdom because everything I've learned in the past few days has been new. So my reaction to that and the research is I'm horrified that this is not something that's well embedded in our organizations. And even being that Philips was a founder of the Barcelona principles, I think we have a long way to go.
Excellent.
I'm Francis Ingham. I'm the Director General of the PRCA in the UK and the Chief Executive of ECO. I guess my initial reaction is that I'm not surprised for 2 reasons. One, because I found a copy of the report lying around on Tuesday, so I was able to read it. It was marked confidential, but why would that have stopped me? And secondly, from the perspective of my UK members and my international members, they tell us every year that evaluation is one of their top 3 priorities, and that's been consistent for quite a long time now. But nobody's willing to invest in it. So the findings aren't really a great surprise to me. What we need to do is take concrete action to put evaluation at the heart of what people do. And we've agreed a few actions already with my PRCA and my ECO board, which we can talk about later if David wants. But I think we need to do concrete stuff. We've got a load of material there already. We don't need to reinvent anything. It's just a matter of actioning it and getting people to buy into it.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am Sarab Kochar. I am the Director of Research with the Institute for Public Relations. And my initial reaction to the survey was I knew it was coming because as a part of an organization which works with leaders in North America, and the Board of Trustees represent the very best of the CCOs and the leaders in public relations, measurement and evaluation is a very important part for us. And we just did an annual survey where measurement came to the top of where we would be leading as an industry. But again, the awareness was again a question. So the results are not surprising, but it's good that it reaffirms that we really need to move as the industry. And I think the results are good in that way, that it just brings us back to the reality time and again.
I'm Eileen Scheel, Executive Director of Corporate Communications at the Cleveland Clinic. And I'm not surprised that it's low, but I will tell you before we started our measurement journey 2 years ago, I never heard of them. So I think we could do a much better job sharing it with other PR professionals. And I think it makes a big difference because it's completely changed the way we do PR at the Cleveland Clinic. And it's so important that we do it right.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. Let's start, Sarah, with you as a first question. So you did mention that Philips was one of the early adopters of the principles. So question to you is, you know, how have you applied the principles into practice as you do your job? And if you think about what next, from your perspective, what should we be doing?
Okay, so the first part I think that I knew most about was don't use AVEs. So that's what I was taught, and that's probably the starting point at Philips. We did a lot of work, of course, with the Ketchum team on building. How do you really value what we're doing, and did a lot of sophisticated modeling, but most of it happened at the center. So if I could just give my experience as a market person, so I was always in Asia Pacific, I was in Australia, and then I've been in the Middle East for the past 3 years. And in both of those areas, what I experienced was the teams that were working for me, as well as our agencies, were like, Barcelona, what? They had no idea what we were talking about. So I felt compelled to try and educate the people the best that I could, but obviously I was very, very far away from the center. So my piece of advice would be that, you know, we need to do a much bigger PR effort on our own practice, and that can really go from global offices out to local offices. And I think consultancies really need to support that as well.
Excellent, thank you.
What I agree. I think we do need a bigger educational PR effort. What got you on the journey in the first place? What was the compelling argument that convinced you to embark?
Well, we used to use AVEs, and I knew it was wrong, but I didn't really know why. And I always say, you know, the expertise in this room is really amazing. And what I've been fortunate to be here now, this is my 3rd year, and what I've learned from you all has been really important. So I think, I mean, if I look at every single one of them, we've changed what we've been doing. I mean, we do goal setting now. We look at outcomes, but we also look at outputs. But I know outputs for us drive awareness, but outcomes drives patient volume, and it's very clear the difference there. So it really does tie to the business objective, which I think is critical.
Yeah, I just want to follow up to something, Sarah, we talked about it at lunch, and I'm. This is a theory I have, and you can either say I'm wrong or you're the client, so you can of course say I'm wrong. I have a theory that one problem we have with uptake is the way that we price evaluation services. And there's a slight tension between the agency and the evaluation community in terms of how this is brought together. So I'm just wondering, is that valid? And if so, what would you say to address it? And if it's not valid, what do you think is the bigger concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is valid, because I think as a client, the first thing you think of is, okay, what is the first thing I need? I need consultancy and I need agency. And if I have any money left over, then I'll do measurement. So I really think that it's up to the agency to come with a prepackaged offer, whether it's, you know, internal or a partnership, where you say, we will not only bring you the results, we will help you analyze it, and we'll help you interpret it. But it has to come together. No client is able to go and secure those services on their own in a integrated way that's value for money.
Right.
You know, one of the things that I sat in the session yesterday a little frustrated at first, because I felt like we were having this conversation again, and we just had around the principles and awareness. And I'm really struck by your comment around you feel like you've been led into the secret vault. But one of the things that occurred to me, and I'm interested in the panel's reaction, is not everyone is at the same place on this measurement journey. And it is a journey. And that's a theme I feel like I heard it's a process, and we're along the way in the process. So I almost feel like there's a little bit of a maturity model that's evolving, where you may have some folks just in the beginning of this model on awareness all the way through to optimization. And quite frankly, maybe none of us are there. Interested in your perspective, and Francis, from your perspective, how would that, the introduction of a maturity model to your organization, would that be helpful? Would it allow us to be more focused in our education efforts? What would your reaction to that be?
So I speak from the perspective of ECO, 31 countries, 2,000 agencies, the PRCA, 400 agencies, 200 in-house teams. And they all embrace the idea of evaluation. They all know it's fundamental to the future of the business, and they are all at different stages in implementing it and in understanding it. So 2 years ago with Barry, we published the PR Professionals Guide to Evaluation, ECO, AMEC, and the PRCA, and we had lots of national associations around the world endorsing it. And one of the things we're going to do on the back of this summit this week is to reissue that guidance with lots more international content. And it did actually set out, here are different ways in which you can evaluate that will reflect your level of financial commitment and the maturity of where you're at in this process. And I think that's a useful step. I think one of the difficulties is that the models of evaluation presented are often overcomplicated, overcomplex, and overcostly. And that's one of the things that holds people back from investing in them. To go to the point you were making a moment ago, we also at the PRCA run this matching service for clients and agencies. So we see an awful lot of briefs. Hardly any of them ever talk about paying for evaluation. So if clients want it, they want it for free. And that has to change, because it's simply unrealistic to expect that a good slice of the profit an agency makes from that work is then going to be directed for free towards proving the value they've delivered. And that's something that has to change.
I'm always struck by when I hear that. We've done some research, and it's some of the frustrations from PR practitioners is just that clients want to pay for it. What surprises me from where I sit as a management consultant is it would never occur to me to ask a client for money for measurement. If I'm doing a communication program, measurement is the beginning, middle, and end. They're one and the same. So how difficult, I'm going to ask Sarah, how difficult would it be to stop asking and to build your communication campaigns with measurement built in?
I think we were just talking before the session started, and we had this discussion yesterday as well when we were in different sessions. The discussion was that in the morning when we were having this panel about from outputs to outcomes, the discussion was we had Asim from India, we had Casey, we had different global perspectives of how the clients are asking for just the output measures. And it's just that 10% of, or even less than that, would ask for outcome measures. And I think the discussion is like examples like Cleveland Clinic or Royal Philips. It's not just a journey for the PR practitioners or the industry, but also to move along the clients with us in this journey. It's not just one way of the journey. It has to be the other side which should move along, and that would really make a bigger impact. The more the clients would ask for measurement and the more they would ask for outcomes and not just outputs, I think that would also make such an important part that we don't have to ask for it, but it becomes an integral part, I think.
So I'll put you on the spot, Eileen. So let's imagine I am putting, where I'm headed, right? I'm putting a communication campaign in front of you to consider to drive a business or enterprise-wide objective for the Cleveland Clinic, and it includes measurement, and it's just in there, and there's a high degree of transparency, but the total cost of the campaign is $500,000, and it's all in there, all in.
I think you should do it. It's part of it is.
You guys heard it from the client. Just do it.
No,
just get it done.
You should, because that is so critical. And I'm spent a lot of time in the back of a car with my CEO, who's a heart surgeon, by the way. So trying to explain PR measurement to a heart surgeon is never fun, let alone the difference between an outcome and an output. So he's a heart surgeon. A good outcome is you walked out of the operating room. But I think it should be a part of it. It should be the total package, because especially now we want to look at what we can deliver as PR people to our organization. I told this story a while back, but I was asked to cut 70% of my budget in the beginning of the year, and if it weren't for metrics and measurement and to show the real impact of public relations on our organization, we wouldn't have enough people to answer the phones, because we get 500 to 600 media calls a week. So these are the kind of things that should be built into communication plans.
So I might just ask a lightning round for each of you, and I'm trying to ask this in a non-leading way, but the branding, the Barcelona principles, and I'm asking this specifically to the two client representatives, but to the whole panel. When you're talking about this with colleagues in the communications industry, not necessarily agencies, but your peers and other organizations who buy services, the Barcelona principles, is that positive, neutral, or negative in terms of talking about the success that you've enjoyed applying them?
I just have a little anecdote. We hosted the Public Relations Society of America annual meeting in the U.S. was hosted in Cleveland just a few weeks ago, and about half of the group paid extra to come and spend a day at the Cleveland Clinic and hear from my communications team. Well, I asked them if they ever heard of the Barcelona principles, and I got a couple looks, and then I said, okay, how many of you really do measurement? And I'll tell you, maybe 5 hands went up, and there were 150 people in the room. So I think this is definitely something that PR practitioners need to be educated and understand not just what the principles are, but what they can do for your PR program.
Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned before, I think I represent two really interesting regions of the world that are just so much further behind. And I think I mentioned to one of the colleagues from Australia this morning, I was really refreshed that she said, we have we know we're behind and we're not afraid to say it. But in Australia, I would say that there was more awareness of it. I'd say in the Middle East, not at all. And when I'm also on the board of the Middle East PR Association, and I asked the board members, what they wanted me to bring to this session, and they said it's totally useless in our region. Clients only want to talk about AVEs. That's the only metric they understand. And if we are really to embed it in a region like that, we have to start with a complete rethink of everything that we do. So, I think we have a long way to go.
Sarah?
I think one of the things is the continued support of organizations like Global Alliance, Institute for Public Relations, and other organizations. But also important is what the research also told us, the simplicity of the metrics or the framework. We have the valid framework, the metrics framework, but still it's complicated for most of the people to follow and to adopt. And I think what Stuart Smith said on the very first session on the first day was maybe have a PR campaign for this. I don't know if this is possible, but I would say the continued support of Coalition for Public Relations Standards or even other organizations, but making it simpler would be a very strong message and a very helpful thing that we could do to take this further.
Great. Francis, you want to round that one off?
I think we need to be realistic. The reality is, as you will see, as you go around the world, we are an industry in very different stages of development. So it'd be unrealistic to expect entirely similar ways of evaluating PR. It's simply the reality that PR in Bulgaria, for example, is very different to PR in the UK, and that's something we ought to accept. And having said that, if I were to ask my members in the UK, are they aware of the Barcelona principles, I'd get a reasonable number saying they are aware of them. Do they think they're a good thing? They would say that they are a good thing. Could they name all or indeed any of them? Highly unlikely I'd get a good response from that. So we need to be realistic about where we're starting from.
Great.
I think there's probably, so a couple comments. There's a little disconnect between being aware of this air quotes Barcelona principles and then having an appreciation for the principles individually. So, Francis, to your point, if you were to ask a member, hey, is it important for you to measure social media? Absolutely, no doubt about it, and here's how we do it. So there's a little bit of a disconnect, and I love the comment around some type of global PR campaign, maybe a little bit of the cobbler with no shoes. That may be an opportunity for us, but I want to make another comment here. So I feel a sense of urgency for the industry. If you look at, and David and I had this conversation yesterday, you have sort of strange bedfellows like Booz Allen Hamilton, IBM, Northrop Grumman, PricewaterhouseCoopers, McKinsey, now all paying close attention to measurement and evaluation. And we're putting resources against it in data sciences and techniques we've perfected and built in defense and intelligence against real live problems on the revenue side of the business. So when you think about that, coupled with the fact that we need to move fast, what does that mean to you? And what would a partnership look like differently? If you want to partner with your agency or partner with consultancies differently, what does partnership look like?
I might start that. I think there was a few intriguing things that I saw today, which I think really reflect where things are going. This reality that marketing and communications are, blending, and there's all of this competition going on. I think it's fantastic. And I think that what we see is a lot of PR professionals are actually the ones that can make that combination happen. But on the flip side, what we see happening is the data is being really used in a strong way in the branding and marketing side, and it's being really used in a strong way in the digital side, but we don't have any ground to stand on right now in the PR side. So I think that a strong partnership means that we as an industry take the opportunity to lead all of those things together. So I think that for me, I guess the white space right now is how we can use all of that listening, all of the psychometric analysis, everything together to lead integrated communications.
I agree with what you said earlier about feeling like you're kind of a special invite into this, secret club. But, it might be something to consider to get more of you speaking at our conferences so you can help us educate more people about it.
Yeah. I made a comment in a meeting yesterday with Jeremy and David that was probably a little bit of heresy, right? Because I said, sitting there trying to understand exactly what the deal flow is, right? How do you go from a discussion with a client to then they buy something? And it seemed like the PR professionals were sitting right in the middle of that. So I said, well, Jeremy, take them out. Just go around them. And you said, well, I sort of agree, but I disagree. So how do you had a reaction to that because we're hearing there's an opportunity for the PR industry to lead. Mm-hmm. There's an opportunity for us to get ahead of it and to be fast leaders. But in some respects, we may be getting in our own way. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, if I were an evaluation company, I wouldn't want to go through an agency middleman. I would want to go straight to the to the buyer. If I were a PR agency, which I am, I'd want to. I'd want to treat the evaluation companies like sub-vendors, like subcontractors. And somewhere the client's probably missing out on the optimal value of both. So it's probably going to need to be not a compromise, but a way in which we add value together and make the programs more effective for clients. I wonder, we probably got about 8 minutes before we have to start moving back. So do you want to get some questions from the...
We do. I had a
comment.
I had a comment, but I forgot it because I was so excited. But let's get questions from the audience here. We'll start here in the front row, and then we'll go to you. Two over there.
Thank you. I'm Lasse Skjolden from Infomedia Denmark. Let me just 1 second. Gonna read a tweet. Gonna have to use both hands. Okay, here it is. AVEs are like drugs, an unhealthy quick fix. They will always be used, ban or no ban. Let's discuss when and how it is safe to use them. How do you think about this? And I have no particular one to ask. Maybe you first.
Yeah, it's funny because our CEO shows one slide, and it shows how many media hits we got year over year. It's the only slide he uses for the board meetings and everything. And then he used to put a big dollar amount. And so I have to sit down with him and say, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I don't know. You tell me. And I have to really explain it to him and say that, okay, maybe if you measured the size of an ad and the size of an article, but even what if it's, we harmed a patient or we saved a life? Those aren't equally valued. So I said, what does this mean? He said, so it's been a journey for us to educate our leadership and help them understand that that's not worth anything. And I don't know if there's a right way to use it. I'm after coming here for 3 years in a row, I've been brainwashed to think otherwise.
Can I add to that? Because I would say never. And I say that because the value of advertising is poorly, subjectively, and unfairly valued through its current processes. And I think that measuring by space or time is an unfair measurement of advertising. To then impose an equivalent measurement of PR on top of that means that we're on really unstable ground. So I can't see any circumstances in which AVEs are...
Our coverage is like 98% positive all the time. And so I think the value of PR is much more than advertising.
Could I provide a devil's advocate moment? I walked in on a party in my office one day, and they had a giant cake, and this was in our consumer division, and it had 1 million across it. And I said, oh, what is this party for? And they said, oh, we're celebrating that we got $1 million in AVEs. And I went, oh my God, are you guys serious? But the point was that it brought the marketing team together. They were super excited about what PR could do. So in that moment, I thought, oh.
Good. We got a question here. Comment from Francis and Francis from
Simple,
Casey.
and they give you a big number. And that's the problem with them. But they're absolutely rubbish. And like David says, they ought never to be used.
Case.
So, at the end, you were talking about the relationship in terms of media evaluation company, PR company, and the client at the end. I'd like to know from the experience, because we're in the very first steps of the journey that you have mentioned. How does that relationship work in terms of the media evaluation company and the PR company? And this is why I'm asking. There are very few media evaluation companies, a lot of PR companies. So is it an exclusive relationship, or can the media evaluation company make several alliances to reach different clients? So how does it work in a more evolved market like yours?
I can start and then jump in. But for us, I think it's about the relationship you have with the agency and with the media analytics organization, because we went through a search, and it was very uncomfortable for the media analysis companies to work through the agency. And so what we did is said, thank you for sharing that, and we sat and met with our agency partner and said, we want to be able to make the decision. The client, we want to make the decision who we go with, but we need help. And so for us, it was, and it really is a partnership, and we kind of force the relationship, but we put ourselves in the middle of it, and it works really well.
And I want to get to Jane's question. The other thing that I would start to think about and we should explore is if you look at most of the Fortune 100 or 250, there are companies like mine working in there with either your clients or your clients' bosses. And when you think about partnering differently, to David's comment, the clients who pay these out, they pay, there's one price. And I can have 3 partners along the journey with me, and in most cases we do. Whether it's I have a media evaluation company that works with me, and I buy data from a company. It's all very transparent to our client, but it's easy. So I would think about, let's build a model that can scale and make it very simple, and then we scale it, because as an industry, everybody wins. Right? If we just sort of have this one pocket here that we can't scale or share, it's a lose-lose. We have to grow the industry. So I would think about it from that perspective, but start slow and grow, I think would be the smart way to go. Jenny.
Agree with that. It's a great vision for us to get to. But I just wanted to add from, I represent the media evaluation. I'm from Gorkana, and from my experience, the best outcomes for clients is going to be, for the agency to help a client go through the evaluation process. But at the end of the day, I think everyone can really recognize how can you grade your own work objectively. And if you're the one measuring your own work, it really, if we're being honest with ourselves, how can you really do that? So I think everyone is better served by partnering. You can help vet and say, here are, approved folks who we know do it right, who are adhering to the Barcelona principles, are adhering to standards, do what I say, we deliver righteous research, and say, now you, client, go through the process and see who's the right fit for you, because it's also about relationships, so that I think is really the best approach, and I understand from a agency perspective that's, revenue you have to give up, but, there are other ways. What you're talking about, Chris, is other ways you can get to a much bigger kind of engagement, because you can become more strategic, because you're bringing in big data, you're actually solving problems, rather than trying to get that piece of the pie that's about evaluating your own work. That's not where I think an agency should be.
I think that's very
Could
fair.
not agree more.
I think it's very fair. And if I can bring your organization and my organization and then the UNICEF organization that we heard from yesterday, that was a co-designed program. That was a Gorkana and Ketchum design framework. I think it had the strategic reach that Ketchum was trying to bring to the organization. It had the objective evaluation and a way of contributing back to the strategic process. And now we have an organization that's using measurement at the beginning to inform a strategic process in which communications doesn't just get better, but it actually improves the organization's ability to operate and make a bigger difference in the world. And that, to me, is the optimal
I think that
relationship.
is, and again, taking the lessons learned from there, trying to scale. We have time for one more question, and then I'm going to attempt to try to wrap this up, but we'll talk more in the next room. Did I see you raise your hand? Do we have? Okay.
Hello, hi.
I know your question is important too, but
it's not really so much a question as a bit of a comment, maybe on perhaps the take on the role of PR practitioners and measurement companies. And I think part of it is the fact that a lot of measurement companies are also monitoring companies, and they're always seen as a necessary evil. And so the problem is that there is a bit of there isn't really a mutual respect kind of relationship between PR practitioners and measurement and evaluation companies. And in our experience, would sidestep the PR agencies and would sit across them with the client, and it becomes a very tense relationship where the monitoring comes up and it creates more tension. Yep. So I'm not sure if it's a good idea perhaps to start considering splitting things up and moving away from monitoring completely and having that as a completely separate entity, and evaluation being a completely separate entity as well. I don't know. I mean,
I have a reaction to that, but panel, I would caution us about further fragmenting what I also think is a very delicate market at the moment, with tremendous upside potential to grow a market and drive big time market share and deliver for clients. But that's my quick reaction. I don't know if the panel had any reaction to that.
It's fragmented and complex enough as it is.
I mean, from a client side, I totally understand the point, though.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah, it's
mean,
the right- it's the right
monitoring
question to ask.
agencies, are very frustrating for clients, but we're also looking for people to upskill and provide that analysis. So I would much rather that a monitoring agency started to do analysis for us than going to different people.
And make it less complicated for your clients. Come in as one team. Right? The agency started exploring with this the large holding companies started exploring with this model about a decade ago, where WPP and other large holding companies would put teams of disparate PR agencies together to do the global cardiovascular business for Pfizer or whatever.
We're still having this conversation today.
Yeah. Well,
It obviously has to work either way. We're still talking about it.
I think it's still a question of capabilities, what kind of a capability each team or the group brings in. And I think that goes back to the question what Chris was saying about the sense of urgency we should have as a profession and where should the partnership lead us to. And I think when we talk about partnership again, it's again about the set of skill sets or the capabilities that we could bring into PR so that we could move this discussion further. Because when we talk about big data or analytics or sophisticated modeling, is it a question of training our professionals or bringing those capabilities and partner with them? So.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. All right, so I'm going to take a quick moment. So you guys have to all keep me honest in the next session. Here's what I feel like I heard as it relates to 2 or 3 and maybe 4 sort of big takeaways from this. The first one, loud and clear, we must do more to raise the level of awareness through a large global public relations, education, training campaign around the principles in a different way. And to your point, let's learn from what we did or didn't do in the past and make it much more effective. And so the education is key. I heard the second thing, we started going down this path, which I think is the right path, of partnerships and finding ways to collaborate and partner, whether it's with professional trade associations and industry, whether it's measurement and evaluation industry, consulting firms. Somehow we need to find a model or a set of models that allow us to collaborate to address David's point on pricing barriers. We need to figure out where the barriers are and get rid of the barriers. And so that's the second thing I feel like I heard. There's a third that I want to add that I want to see if everyone agrees with me. I think I'm crazy. I think we need evidence. I think we need evidence. I think we need cases of how the Barcelona principles have helped us change the practice of communications. And without those case studies and evidence that drive towards business metrics, they're just words on slides and largely superfluous. So I think that's the third thing that must, and quite frankly, you all have that. You have the evidence. So I think those are the 3 big things that I heard. Any reaction from the panel to that?
I think it also, you have to keep it simple because we don't speak your language at all. And I'm not talking about German, French, or Spanish. This is very uncomfortable for us as clients because we don't get it. I mean, I joke, I have a group that meets called the left brain team because we don't have a left brain. And we're trying really hard to understand what you do. So work with us and help keep it simple.
Sounds good. Please join me in thanking the panelists for their time. So thank you.